everybody. Thanks for joining me at the Light Journal podcast. Today, I'd like to talk about my morning meditation. Typically, when I do my meditations, I am doing silent meditation where I just sit and focus on my breathing, my body, or something else that allows me to clear a space for hearing or receiving messages from my spirit guides or any other of the divine ones. And today I was doing that, and I was focusing on my body. And when I did, I was feeling the sensations in my face and my hair, my neck. And by the time I got to that point, I was already moving into a visionary state. And I saw a bunch of images start flashing across my mind. And what I have typically done in the past is dismiss them. I considered a lot of these because they appeared to be nonsense. So I didn't pay much attention to them. I just dismissed them. Well, today I didn't do that. Today I felt guided to actually listen or rather watch and record the messages. So that's what I did. And I wanted to share with you what the message was. And I wanted to share with you the symbology, because the messages from our higher vibrational guides are often symbolic. So you can't look at it as though it is a literal message. It's not literal. It's very rarely literal. And you need to use your symbolic mind, your symbolic sense of what it means to really interpret it. But to do that, first, I'd like to share with you the actual visions, what I actually saw. And I think in doing so, it'll help you to understand why I have so often just dismissed these images as, chaotic nonsense in my head, because that's what it seems like at first when I start describing what I'm seeing. But when you take the time to recognize that it's symbolic, then whole nother realm opens up of understanding what's happening to you. So I'm going to read some of those things. I did record them. What I would do is I would see a few things and then I'd record them. And I'd go back into that meditative state. I'd see a few more things and I'd record them. And that way I didn't forget, because if I had waited to the very end of all these visions, then I would have forgot some of them, or I wouldn't have described them to the same extent. And so it really helps to do it incrementally as you're going through the vision. So here's what I've got, and I'd like to share it with you. The very first thing I saw was an image of cobblestones and bricks. Now that's significant because I've been working on putting this puzzle together, and it's full of cobblestones and bricks. So typically I would have thought, that's just my everyday life intruding into the vision, but I didn't do that this time. This time I wrote it down, and I knew right from the get-go what it meant, but I'm not going to share that with you until after I have discussed each of the different images, and then I'll share with you what that image meant to me as I was seeing it. The second thing I saw was a scene out of the Lucifer TV show where the main character, Lucifer, had a sexual relationship with the female detective and ended up bringing forth a child. And that child was the focus of this particular vision and what that child represented. The third thing I saw was actually rather humorous. I saw a chicken in a chicken coop sitting on a perch right next to an empty chair, as though the chicken was the therapist for the individual in the chair. And then, as I understood that, then the image just started fading away, and all that remained was an empty coop. The chicken and the chair were all gone. The fourth thing I saw was an image of the United States Capitol building, and it was like puzzle section had been pulled off of the puzzle, and it was disconnected from the rest of the United States. It was all in its own little thing, and then the United States was disconnected from the government itself. And the fifth vision I had was of a sword, and it was one of those long, ancient war type swords, and it just disappeared from the tip back to the handle. It just kind of faded away and disappeared. In the sixth image, I saw a classroom where instruction was taking place. It was a new classroom. It was unlike any classroom I have seen before. Unfortunately, the details of it faded very quickly, so I wasn't able to capture much more than the fact that that's what it was, a classroom. And the seventh thing I saw was a shipping container with a red box on top of it, maybe even a little antenna. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was really bizarre, and it was being pulled up out of the earth, and it was coming to the surface. It might have even been pulled out of the water. I really can't remember if it was out of the ground or out of the water, but it was pulled up out of the earth itself. And the eighth thing I saw was that the earth stopped rotating. The ninth thing I saw, and the ninth and final thing that I saw, was an image of a very bright, intense light. And on both sides of that light were these large corrugated walls or walls or tubes. And they were the kind that contract and expand. And they pulled back, uncovering the light. And out of the light came 5 or 6, maybe 7, I really can't recall the exact number, of very beautiful humanoid-like beings, and they came walking out of this light, and that was all I saw. But keep in mind, this was all symbolic. This was not meant to be taken literally. So let's go back and review what I understood each of these images to mean and to represent. The cobblestones and bricks meant that there are going to be many layers and levels that have to be constructed in order for this future to take place. And it also could represent that these things have to be constructed in order to that the entire vision itself had to be, for me to understand it, needed to be put together, that I couldn't just understand it by looking at one piece of the vision. I had to look at the entire vision. It could also mean both of those things and not just one or the other of those things. The second image that had to do with the TV show Lucifer and the child that was born, that represents the metamorphosis or transformation of humanity into a higher state of being, because the child was neither all human nor all angel. In her case, she was a combination of higher spiritual being and human, possessing the attributes of both on an outwardly understood level. So to me, that represents our transformation, because we are divine. So it's not like this is going to be new in that sense. What's going to be new is our ability to harness, to understand, and to work with that new understanding of life and of being. So it's a new humanity that's going to be emerging. And then the third image was that of the chicken and the chair. What's really funny about that is I saw it and it looked just like the chicken was the therapist and the chair was where we would sit to be healed of whatever mental, emotional traumas that we had. But the image, if you recall, disappeared, and all that remained was the chicken coop. This is because what I was being shown was the diseases and pestilences that have been affecting our society. You know, right now we have the bird flu. That's a really huge issue, and I think that's why I was given the chicken. It represents humans will no longer need to be taught or learn through pestilences and diseases that are striking the earth with disturbing regularity at this point, with the COVID and the bird flu and the mad cow disease and all these different things. Well, they are there to teach humanity, for us to learn through. And these are no longer going to be the means by which we learn. This is an important lesson. And the next one, if you recall, was the separation of the U.S. Capitol from the rest of the country. What this represents is the end of government as we know it. There's going to be a new way in which we govern ourselves, and I have no clue what that is because I wasn't shown that. Just that government as it is today is no longer going to exist. Something else is going to take its place. And the third thing in the next image was that of a sword that disappeared. Well, that represents the end of violence and wars. They are no longer going to be our teachers either. And so number 6, that new classroom I talked about, that's where these last 3 things all kind of come together. What that new classroom is a new way for humanity to learn. We're no longer going to need to learn through pestilences and diseases and other types of mass disasters. We're no longer going to need through governmental interventions and being governed by an external force. Instead, we're going to learn to be governed from an internal place. And the third one was we're no longer going to need to learn through violence and wars. Instead, we're going to learn through collaboration and cooperation. That's going to be our new learning tools. It's no longer going to be fear-based learning or suffering-based learning. So these are really exciting transformations that are occurring to us as we enter into this phase of a new humanity. The next thing I saw was that canister, that big, huge container coming up out of the earth. What that image represents is that Earth is going to reveal her secrets. I don't know what those secrets are. I wasn't shown that, but just that the Earth is going to release knowledge, perhaps, or insights, or something. It's going to be released for the access and use of humanity, and I don't know what that is. The next image was Earth was no longer rotating. The Earth just stopped rotating. What that represents is that time stops. Our linear way of living, that linear time frame, that construct for how we process time, that's going to stop. We're going to begin to understand and dwell in the eternal now. And that is what the Earth stopping represents. Lastly, I saw the picture of these beings emerging out of the light. What that represents is that we are going to have new teachers that are going to come and assist us in learning how to deal with this new reality that we have entered into, this new world, this new way of being. We're actually going to have help to assist us in that process. So that is what I had in the vision this morning, and I wanted to share that with you because I found it to be an amazing vision of hope and something to look forward to in these times of chaos, that what's happening now is a necessary step for the construction of a new world. So instead of fear, see the hope. Instead of worry, feel anticipation. There is a joyous time that is coming into our life, and I don't know when it is. I was not shown the time frame for this, so I can't share that with you because I wasn't shown it, but I will continue to do these meditations. As I'm given new insights to share, I will share them with you. So thanks for listening. This has been the Light Journal, and blessings on your journey, everyone.